Grant Robertson back with us. Good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
If it was up to you right here, right now, would you pull the trigger?
Oh, look, that's Cabinet's decision, Mike. I know, like all New Zealanders, I'm really anxious to see us move out of level 4 and start returning ourselves to a bit of normality. But we've got a process to go through, and, we've been very methodical and deliberate and decisive as we've been on this journey, and we've got to follow that through. So Cabinet will make that decision on Monday, and we'll announce it as soon as we can.
Would it be reasonably fair to suggest that you've spent a lot of energy talking up level 3, therefore we'd be in some level of shock if you didn't go to it on Monday?
No, I think the point there was to make sure that we got as much clarity as possible out and allowed ourselves as much time as possible to refine that advice. I think you and I have talked before about the fact that the journey up the levels was very rapid, and that meant that we didn't have all the detail out there for people. So this is really just making sure that we get that out. We're already getting good feedback on what was announced yesterday, so we can refine that for whenever we go into level 3.
Why do we even have blocks? Why have a block if you come out with level 3 on Monday? Why is it a 2-week block or a 4-week block? Why don't we just go, it's level 3 for as short a possible time, and we'll let you know when we're going to 2?
Yeah, we certainly want it to be for as short as possible time, but I think it's important to be able to give people some signposts, and that's
Why?
Well, just because people are seeking that kind of certainty, but also...
Why? No, they're not. All I want to know, the only certainty I want is back to normality. So if you come out on Monday and go, right, we're into level 3, I don't care how long it is, as long as it's short. I don't want to know it's a month or 3 weeks. I want to know it's as short as possible time. Why set up a yardstick for it?
Oh, well, obviously, Mike, you've got your level of comfort. Other people have their different levels of comfort. The point I was going to make was that we've used blocks of 2 weeks because that fits with the way that the virus gestates. And so, 2-week blocks, 4-week blocks give us an idea of our success in controlling the virus. So that's why we've used those lengths of time. It's why we said 4 weeks for level 4 before the review. And similarly, we use those kinds of blocks because that's what fits with the advice we have about how the virus gestates.
Can I just get some clarification? Maybe it's me being a bit slow, but I thought the overriding principle of level 3 was if you can prove and show that you can open safely, you can open, and yet that would appear not to be the case for hospitality industry, for example.
Yeah, well, it's safely within the public health guidelines, Mike, and that's particularly around those issues about physical distancing and being able to make sure that we restrict the number of contacts that people have. So we can allow those outlets to be able to provide services as long as they can deliver those in a contactless way.
But
so
if they can't?
It's operating safely within the guidelines.
Sure, I understand that. So in saying that, you are consigning the hospitality industry to carnage, aren't you, basically?
No, we're not. And, the conversations I've been having with the hospitality industry and other ministers and officials have been having is that they are, I saw Marissa Bidwar say that there is a real lifeline here for a lot of businesses at level 3. For those that can't operate at level 3, the focus is on preparing themselves for level 2, where, hospitality businesses will be able to have customers inside their businesses within those public health restrictions. And, I've got a lot of faith in the innovation and the work that those businesses can do. Obviously, for some of them, this is very, very tough, but there are ones who will be able to operate at level 3 and then even more at level 2.
Regionality. The Prime Minister seemed to back off on that concept yesterday. A lot of people on the West Coast, for example, Gisborne, hardly any cases saying, hang on, we're ready to go. Why can't we? Why have she and you, I guess, backed off on that?
We're still working our way through it, but it is a very difficult process to be able to manage and control. And I know people say, there's only a certain number of roads in and out, but we've seen from the way that the virus spread that, for example, you had a Hereford Bull Conference in Queenstown, but the people involved in that are all over the country now. And so it is very, very challenging to manage that. It would require a lot of enforcement. And so we're working our way through whether or not that is a possibility. We're certainly still doing the work on how it would happen, but there are definitely logistical and practical constraints to that kind of approach.
I've seen the traffic increase. I'm in it every day, obviously. I've seen the traffic increase exponentially. Do you psychologically run the risk of losing the goodwill of New Zealand, and are we not on that slippery slope partially already?
Look, I think New Zealanders have done a remarkable job of supporting this lockdown, and I think we all recognise that there's still some way to go in completing that job. But clearly, we have to keep bringing people with us. It's one of the reasons why we're getting this information out about levels 3 and 2 early, before we've even made a decision about moving there, so that we can help people understand what their lives might be like. I think New Zealanders have done a remarkable job here, and we've just got to stick with it, finish the job.
Would you concede Australia's done better than us when you look at all the numbers?
No, I wouldn't. I think each country's got its own approach, and when I look at the numbers, they're relatively comparable. I mean, You can pick different ones, Mike.
But more open. The economy's more open, indisputably so.
Well, I think, it's state by state, and there are different approaches to that. But equally, the Australians are talking about their restrictions being in place for a lot longer than what we would like to see.
Well, they're not actually. They're talking about another 3 weeks by the time we get into level 3, which is what they've already been in. They will be out the same side, and all the time, they've been way more open than us.
No, I don't accept that. There's a lot of state-by-state variation. But look, in the end, these kinds of comparisons are interesting for us. We always like to compare ourselves to Australia. What we've done in New Zealand has worked for New Zealand, and I'm very pleased with the progress we've made.
Peter Dunn wrote a very good piece. If you haven't read it already, this is way too Orwellian. There are far too few people running this thing. Should Parliament reconvene?
Well, Parliament will reconvene as soon as it possibly can. But clearly, we made decisions.
That's up to you.
Well, it's actually up to the Business Committee of Parliament and the Speaker. And so they are, in fact, as I understand it, having a meeting today to talk about when that is possible. But through this process, we've had the Epidemic Response Select Committee scrutinising what we've been doing. All of the decisions we make still have to go through the Cabinet processes. And, we'll have Parliament back as soon as possible. But I think if you look around the world, we compare pretty well to the way in which we've been open to the scrutiny that you would expect us to be.